Greetings to all of my partners and family. Just making an update video this March 2025 birthday month. Woohoo! It's been a little bit of a while since I've given an update, so I thought I would. Usually I try to definitely after my ministry trip to BVI. Although that was in January, so it's been a while still, even after that. The days have been full, to say the least. Just wanted to sort of give an update. I'll try to make this not very long. I tend to get verbose, so I apologize ahead of time. Family all doing well, mommy, big papa, all the siblings and the nieces and nephews and the great nieces as well. No great nephews yet. All things well. No super big family events coming up or happened since I think the last update. In regards to Temple of Deliverance, life-changing ministry, the ministry I am connected to locally, Todd, is what we call it for short. So Temple of Deliverance, doing well also, still doing teaching, ministering in dance and movement, various duties. Got the 2025 season for Children's Church Ministry off and running. Some of our congregants registered for that. We're going to try to kick off the youth portion as well. I mostly deal with the younger elementary school age, and the middle school and high school are usually separated, and so another leader will minister with them and teach, etc. So we're still waiting for that portion to kick off, though it's supposed to kick off at the same time. So be praying with us on that. TLDBI, the Bible Institute connected to Temple of Deliverance, we actually have a meeting tonight in regards to moving forward, our next steps, the plan ahead. We do have a class coming in April. I will get that information out to you if you haven't seen it yet. Hybrid, I think, online and in person. It'll depend on how many students register, so that's usually the thing. So if not many students register, oftentimes we'll just do virtual. If we have a lot of students registering, or a good amount who want to come to the space and have sort of that in-person connection, then we usually do hybrid. For those that are a little bit further who may need to log on or have the class virtually, we do that. So growing all that. The class is in regards to the history of the church as we know it, the history of the Christian church, of course, the history of the Church of Jesus Christ. And that's not to say the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or the Mormons, but the church, the ecclesia, the kingdom church. And so we're going to delve into that a little bit in the 12 weeks that we have in the course. So from April through, I believe, the early summertime. Then Triunity Empowerment Enterprises. We have not put out any new products yet, and I am working on some text, but not engaged in the deeper quick work of the text, so it probably won't be coming out anytime very soon. However, we'll still be working on that, so there will be more coming. Still writing, still developing. Lots of time given to other things, so I need to balance out the time for the business and that sort of thing. So that's working with that. The EITI portion, Eagles International Training Institute, and the Eagles Network, 10 Worldwide. Working with those. 2 classes I have with the Institute this year in 2024-25 season, the 20th year actually of EITI. So this is a great celebration time for EITI in general. I am taking Anointing 1 course, and actually Elder Leatress is in that course with me, so yay. And also taking School of Worship 1 or SOW 1, SOW. So yeah, it's going well. The teaching and learning, of course, are phenomenal, excellent. The instructors, the same. The classmates themselves, beyond amazing. Just, we'll talk a little bit later about the time factor, and so just making sure that I have enough time to dedicate to getting assignments and on time and all of those other kinds of things. So yeah, still working with a couple of outreach ministries. Miriam's Mission, which actually has sort of expanded, if you could say that. Zion Movement and Miriam's Mission, which has expanded to a couple of dance companies, Taking Back the Dance Company, and also No Man Can Work Dance Company. Sorry, it left my mind for a moment. Those two companies, also in conjunction with our Miriam's Mission work, as well as the leader over Miriam's Mission and over all of the other pieces that I just said about the outreach ministry, Elder Prophet Jacqueline Saunders. She also has begun the works of a nonprofit called Barra Center, and the Barra Center would house all of those entities together, as well as there's a beauty component. So modeling and fashion and industry and a lot of other things that Elder Jackie has had as training in her past, and so wants to share that with kingdom minded and kingdom focused ministers and God's people to infiltrate that marketplace as well for a kingdom. So working alongside her mostly with the Miriam's Mission portion, which is leadership and movement. So of course I fit very well right there, right? So yes, but also playing a part in the others as I am able to. Health has there have been some challenges, nothing major at all, nothing in comparison to some other people's health challenges. However, have been focusing in on maintaining health and wellness and balance, hormonally, physically, staying moving, staying active, and also practicing those rhythms of rest, trying to get that rest in, because I think that's one of the keys to sort of feeling better for me personally, not in general. Although that research may say the same, I'm not sure. I'm not focused on that portion. Then there's secular ministry, which I am going to solicit everyone's prayers in regards to. The days have been very full, very long. This entire fiscal year, as a matter of fact, so since August, all on through till now, because of things like budget cuts and transitions in the district, etc. There are places and spaces in secular ministry that were once covered by people and now are not. However, the work still has to be done. The leader is still accountable for that. And so as a partnership with my leader, my principal, as the assistant principal, we are held responsible for making sure that all things run the same or well or smoothly, that we have all of the responsibilities that need to be addressed for the district, as well as for the portions of the district, are done. So whether we have the positions there or not, and finding ways to make that work. We do have good support, but it is something that uh, affects all of those in the district, and maybe not all of those, but definitely most of us in the district, and most especially the particular schools within our demographic in the district. So our network of schools, the district is divided into networks, and our network of schools in our vicinity, they're geographic networks. And so, yeah, all of our schools are finding similar challenges. We have gotten some funds to assist. However, the funds don't assist in purchasing people. So the people that are no longer doing those jobs and positions that now have to be picked up by the leaders because they have to still be done, um, yeah, aren't necessarily covered. But there are other ways that we are trying to finagle and work that. The forecast for the coming fiscal year, which will start in technically July, but definitely August is when the scholars and the staff returns, is anticipated to be even a bit more of a challenge, especially in light of the fact that the mayor, who is in charge of our schools in our district, has ended the contract of the current CEO. And so there will be new leadership at the top levels. So there'll be some changes and some deficits coming along. At least that's the projection of the district. We decree that we are able to do all things through Christ who strengthens us. He gives us strategy. He gives us the wherewithal and the help that is necessary to accomplish the goals that He has sent us there to accomplish, and that we are successful no matter what. That we acknowledge Him in all of our ways. He directs our paths, and that we are bold, brave, strong, courageous, and we make our way successful because He is with us. So, amen. To share with you regarding the BBI trip that I took in January. So every January, for the past, this has been the third year, I want to say, might be fourth. Sorry, third or fourth year that I have been able to share at a conference. Advancing the Kingdom Conference is what it's called in British Virgin Islands. Usually we are in Tortola and Virgin Gorda. Those are two of the islands. We usually visit a couple of the other islands. Beef Island is the island that we fly into. I fly into, I should say. I fly into each year when I visit. And Beef Island is directly connected to Tortola by a bridge. And so they're kind of like the same, but they're not. But anyway, so this year, I consider myself a bit of an expert in terms of getting there and getting back home now. I was able to leave a little bit earlier this year than I had in the past, so I was able to join in a little bit more at the beginning portions of the ministry. However, the time was extended. Normally, Virgin Gorda is just the Sunday ministry piece where we go and partake in service, and then oftentimes there may be either a fellowship or some sort of teaching happening later in the day. I usually don't make that one because usually my flight goes out on Sunday. But this time it was extended through to Monday. So Virgin Gorda was Sunday, and then also on Monday they had activities planned for teaching and for the conference and for those things to happen at Virgin Gorda, where the those who live in Virgin Gorda were able to participate there. Oh, you'll have to forgive me. I was interrupted briefly. And I'm not absolutely sure where I was, but yeah, getting there and coming back, all of that. should be a pro at it by now, which I am. However, the flights were not as kind this year. There was something going on with the airline that partners with the airlines that are connected to the states, and so getting from usually I fly through Puerto Rico to BVI, and getting from the states to Puerto Rico and then over to BVI and back. Uh, there's a little airline with little bitty planes that does that, because between the islands, they're huge jet planes don't really fly like that. And definitely not into Beef Island, which is the the island where BVI has its airport. And so, because they were not as kind, there was some finagling that had to be done. Leaving a little bit earlier, that sort of helped a little bit. So I left on Wednesday instead of when I normally leave on Thursday, and it usually takes me until the following day to get to BVI because of the way that the flights are going in and out of Beef Island. So yeah, um, knew that there would be a little bit of extra in terms of getting back home because I had to switch flights a couple of times. Um, and then, uh, yeah, I knew that there was, there were things I had to make sure I had timing and other things like that. But I will say this: global entry is your friend, especially if you travel internationally, um, and TSA PreCheck, which is not. I don't think it's called TSA PreCheck. That I have when I signed up for global. No, that was global entry. But anyway, the TSA pre-check portion also very, very good to have if you travel a lot, um, especially in the States. If you travel internationally, I'm gonna say global entry is the way to go. You can bypass lines like nobody's business. Just saying. Um, so yeah, so leaving out, all things were pretty well. Uh, there was some timing things, and I had like some layovers between getting from Chicago to Puerto Rico. So it was just a lengthy amount of time between the flights, let's say. So yeah, but they were pretty good. I had one flight that made a stop, and then I stayed on, and then we went, to the next destination to get to Puerto Rico. Layover at Puerto Rico. We usually don't make it there until after midnight, so close to probably 1 a.m. And they still have flights coming in and going out during that time. I think all the way until like 3 a.m. But they are in a little bit of a different time zone as well. The islands, that way, they're an hour ahead of Eastern, and so that makes sense. Of 2 hours ahead of us at Central Standard Time where I live. So anyway, um, made it there, got there, but they've changed the customs procedure and guidelines in BVI. I think our host didn't know or realize that, so I had to be detained a little bit. And they were asking me questions about who was coming to pick me up and who was I meeting and what was I there for. And I normally ask like what you're there for now that you fill that out on the customs form. But I guess there was some other thing going on because they wanted to know specific names, specific locations, etc. And so I had to, kind of reach out because I'm like, I don't know the actual specifics. I know the conference, I know the hotel, I know the person, and they wanted like the name. And who is that? Who are you? Who's picking you up? And etc. And so yeah, so I guess all that got handled and whatever. And then I got to the person that was picking me up. Apostle Janelle's dad this time was picking me up at the airport and then taking me to the next destinations. We got out and about, and I thought I would make it in time, but I did not. I think I had the timing off, but they ministered by bringing supplies and a ministry piece to an elementary school. They usually do an elementary school. They give like supplies and things like that. And so they'd done that already. And they had also gone to a convalescent home that houses the elderly and mentally challenged. And so they also had gone and ministered there. And so by the time I got to them, we were having midday service. They were doing midday service at a church. And so we did that, went off to eat, and then services in the evening. So all that whirlwind of services. They, asked all the leaders to engage in parts of the services and ministering and also those kinds of things. I was experiencing a few little challenges. My foot has not always been very nice to me in the last several months, and I did go see a podiatrist. I got some orthotics, so just to let you know, I was talking about that earlier. That some health challenges, but like I said, they aren't big challenges. Also have to do a little bit of therapy. There's something going on with the Achilles, sort of, but not exactly the Achilles, so above the heel bone, and the way the ligaments are attached and things like that. So, yeah, soliciting prayers for that too. Thank you. But it has gotten better, thank God. Had the opportunities to minister. We had many EITI people come in this time. So they were, Apostle Pamela was there, of course. Apostle Janelle runs the conference, the ATK conference, Advancing the Kingdom. And, the guests, Apostle Tori, Apostle Janelle's team as well. Apostle Tisha came in with her team from New Jersey. And they had a huge team. There were also some EITI ministers from Georgia and another place that escapes my mind at the moment. So they also were there and came in. Some had a little bit of an issue, I think. Normally, many of the people that come into BVI will travel through St. Thomas. They will fly into St. Thomas and then take a ferry over. I was not as confident in doing that for the reason that I am about to explain now. And I felt a lot better about going through Puerto Rico and flying into Beef Island. I prefer flying, although I love ferries and I love the water and I love all of that. But there were some people who they got they did not make the ferry, I want to say, and the ferries run on a schedule, so if you miss a ferry, it's not like a bus where like, okay, the bus will come again in an hour or whatever. And so there were some issues with that for 2 or 3 different groups of people, and for some of them their luggage got to where they were supposed to be going, but they didn't get there in enough time. And so then when they finally got there and had to make travel changes, they came, and then like some of their luggage had to be shipped over to them, so that they could get that, because they arrived after the luggage had already arrived. And so the luggage was housed, and their detour took them another way, and then they got, the luggage later delivered to them. That kind of thing. And there were quite a few of us. There were a lot of us. So we were actually staying in 2 different locations. Something happened with the original plan of housing. And so there was a place that I was staying in a hotel with quite a few of the others. And then there was another place that others were staying. It was not a hotel exactly. It was like what we might think of a Airbnb kind of space, but it had multiple dwellings that were able to house people. So there was always a picking up of groups with vans and such and cars from different locations, and making sure that you got with your group and got back to where you're supposed to be in a timely fashion, and that you were ready when they came to pick you up because they had to go quickly. So all of those things, yeah. So you can imagine some of the challenges, maybe, or some of the adventures that occurred. Only a couple here and there. Good food, of course, and all of that. Excellent company, beautiful ministry pieces. The conference was based around the theme of unhindered and being released. Kingdom principles, kingdom um, living, learning, acting, actions, carrying out here, for such a time as this, and having his kingdom come here in the earth as it is in heaven, and being unhindered in that, not allowing our attachments to the world, not allowing the enemy, not allowing obstacles to hinder us from carrying out what God desires for us. And so, yes, it was a wonderful time in the Lord. Got to minister. This year, Saturday, every year Saturday is the actual Advancing the Kingdom conference where ministry happens, praise and worship, and all that. But then classes are happening for all different groups. So the adults were having classes, the kids were having classes, and this year they split the kids up. Normally, I end up having all the kids, pretty much, except for maybe the older teenagers who stay with the adults. But this year they separated the younger kids from the more like high school age kids. And the junior high school age kids, some of the New Jersey Eagles ministered with them, ministering in flags and worship and instruments and those kinds of things. And so that was new this year. It was really good to see. It was sad that I didn't get to, like engage fully with some of the students that I'd had before, but that's really good to see them transitioning, up and over and having that newness for them. And then I had a couple of maybe 3 or 4 of the students that I've had before were with me, but then most of them were new, and some of them came from from the crew from New Jersey, from Apostle Tisha's ministry leaders, and so it was really wonderful to have all of the kids that were a part, so not just from BVI, but also from the States. So that was really good. A great plug for 10 Now Gen too, and for our time at Summit when we ministered to the kids. So yeah, one of our one of our students. Ooh, excuse me again. Sorry about that. There's a little bit of a breeze going on here. Not sure why. But yes, one of the students that we had, he was there like the entire time. His mom and grandma were Eagles and were ministering, and he was very interesting, a little bit reserved. Definitely a story behind all of that, and I believe he's adopted. So yeah, but that makes no difference in kingdom, right? However, he was very reserved, very selective in terms of the things he would eat, in terms of where he wanted to sit, in terms of what he agreed and wanted to do. And so when he had a cousin or niece, one, I think it was his niece, and they were not very far apart in ages. He was probably around 11 and she was, I think, 8 or 9, probably 9. And so when they were told that they had actual sessions for kids, they were very excited about that. And particularly the 9-year-old was really excited and was like, okay, when is it going to be time for ours? When is it going to be time for ours? That's what her mom had shared with me. And her uncle I think it's her uncle. Sorry, there's a breeze going on in here. He shared with me Friday night, just before we were doing the session on Saturday. He said, "Oh yeah, um, yeah, I heard about the class." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." And I think I'm going to what did he say? He said, "I think I'm going to he said either unschool or unteach, something like that. I'm gonna unschool the class." Um, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." So yeah, and sadly, he ended up being the only male student that we had. Normally, we have several male students. This time, for whatever reason, we did not. Uh, and I don't think there were any in the older group either. But he ended up with us, and there were a bunch of girls. So, he already was like, "I don't really want to be here anyway." And I don't think that that was the case, because he had exhibited some excitement about, having classes just for kids too. And so, I told him, I said, "Okay, well, I'm up to the challenge. I'm looking forward to being unclassed." Whatever the word he used, unclassed or unschooled or something like that. And so we proceeded. The session was wonderful. It was great. It shifted as Holy Spirit needed, and decided we needed to. There was a little bit of scheduling maybe issues. We didn't have a lot of kids for probably a good half an hour of our time at the very beginning. So we did some other things, and then the kids trickled in, and it was quite a few of them trickled in. And then we had a really large group. And so, yeah, and they didn't have the space. They had it separated in terms of receiving the teachings. But then when it came to like the break time, um, all of the other participants came down in the same space. And then it was like keeping track of where the kids were, making sure they were all safe and in the right space and place. And then someone brought out hot chocolate and sugar and something else, and the kids were like all it was just like, oh. Just making sure that they were staying calm with their sugar high and their sugar rush, and that they, were safe and on all of that, getting to the restroom and all those pieces. But that's kind of, some of the normal things that you run into when you work with groups of kids in a different space and place. And so then we all came back together. We had a little talk about listening and about the expectations. And so I apologize, because we probably should have had that first, but I didn't realize that this would be different than what we'd had prior. But it was a little bit different, especially in terms of the invasion of the space. Prior, we had space that was just separate for the kids. So we didn't have adults coming into the space and other people coming to the space while we were in the space. And so yeah, so that was a little bit different than times past. And so I probably should anticipate that no matter what, even if it doesn't happen. It's better safe than sorry. And so yeah, so we completed that. We went out to eat later on that evening at another island. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of that one, but it's the one we've gone to before. And then we took a ferry there, and we came back by ferry also to prepare for the following day, which was a logistic um, task. To get all of the luggage of all of the people who were with the group, which there were at least 20 of us. There probably were more. I feel like there were about 27, but there were at least 20 of us all together, like the people from BVI and the people who'd come in as Eagles to minister, and then the people that were with them, like the kids and things like that. It was a lot. And so my flight leaving out, I told you the flights were a little bit weird this year. My flight leaving out, I wasn't able to take the 3 o'clock because it said that it was full or not available or something. And so I had to take the flight before, which was at the noon time. And so by the time we got all loaded into the ferry, in addition to the regular people that were taking the ferry, right? And the luggage, and then got all the luggage out of the ferry after we got to the next island. Oh, sorry, Virgin Gordas, where we were going for that Sunday to minister. I already knew that I would have to leave early from the service, which started at, I think, like 10ish. But we got off of the ferry at probably close to 10. And I'm like, my flight's going to leave at, sorry, not close to 10. It was close to 9. Sorry, a little after 9:15-ish. Like, and then by the time getting all the luggage and getting everybody loaded into the vehicles to go, 9:30-ish. And it's like, okay, the next ferry's going to leave at 10:30. So to get into the vehicle, get to the church, get her whatever, and then get back to the ferry, I'm like, that's pretty tight. So I said to Apostle Jill, she's like, oh, you're right. You know what? We probably should have just not even had you come. We could have, so I got my ferry ticket and went back, waited for a little bit, and then went back to Beef Island to wait for the plane. Well, I get there right around my plane's leaving at around 12ish, so I got there right around the 11 time, 11ish, because the ferry left at 10:30. So I got there around 11ish. And I'm told that, oh, did you know that your flight was delayed? I can still check you in, but you won't be able to leave until 3. Like, that was the flight I was supposed to take in the first place. If I had known that. Right, so herein begins the adventure. So they said there was some kind of mechanical issue. And I apologize. This is going a little bit long. So then I'm going to cut it short. So there was some kind of mechanical issue with the flight coming from Beef Island. So with the airline there. And I am now in an international space because calling internationally on my phone isn't a doable thing. Texting is doable and all of that, but calling is not quite doable. And so I had to figure something out because I needed to let them know where I was going, that I would not be there at the time that I originally stated, and that I would need to change that flight plan going back home. So then I got another device because my phone wasn't going to call out. I would have had to call the company and then do some other stuff to release the non-international calling thing on it. But yeah, I ended up using a different device to call, making the call, and getting charged like 25 cents per minute to call Southwest to let them know I'm not going to make that next flight. I'm going to need to change that. So they did change it for me, and actually I got a credit. That was really cool. However, I was all checked in, waiting for that next flight, and then I hear a call over the intercom for people to come back to, if you have this flight, come back to the place where you check in. I don't remember what that's called, but to come back to the counter. And so because I already had checked in, I'm like, well, maybe that's not me. And then they announced it a couple more times. And then they said my name. And I was like, oh, wait. And I was like, well, what do I need to do now? Because so in the little airport on Beef Island, there's just one way into the place where you go to wait for planes. You don't really have an out way except to go to your plane, unless you go back the way that you came in, which there were people coming in there. So I went to the one of the agents, and I'm like, okay, they just called my name over the intercom. I already checked in, but they called my name saying I needed to come to the counter. And they're like, yeah, you need to go to the counter. Then it's probably because there's a change in your flight or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so how do I get there? What do I do? Do I just go through these people? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, Okay. So do I just take my bags with me and go through them, and then do I have to? He's like, yeah, you go ahead through. And well, thankfully, um, one of the Eagles, the EITI ministers who lives in BVI, actually a couple of them work at the airport, but she was working at the airport, and I had just seen her that morning and the night before, and so she came by and she's like, "Oh yeah, hi." She's like, "Oh, is everything okay?" And so I explained to her what they were telling me. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're good. Go ahead through, and then once you get to the counter, they'll tell you what you need to know, and then you can just come on back." And I'm like, "Okay." So I did. I went through the people and went back through the door, and went to the counter. And then they tell me, "Oh, this flight that we had you gonna be going on because of the mechanical failure. We're not sure what's gonna happen. So this other flight is gonna be leaving, and that's gonna be leaving before yours does. So we're gonna put you on that one instead." And so they gave me a whole different boarding pass ticket, all that other kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay. And it did make me in enough time to meet that next flight for Southwest. So I did all that, got to where I was going, which was to Puerto Rico, to go to go to Baltimore, to go to Chicago. Yeah, I told you going back home was a little hokey. So then I did that, and that's where I said the global entry really helped, because all I had to do was put my little global entry card on and then go to straight to the line. I didn't have to stand in the line to go around to have them check my passport or anything like that. They knew who I was when I got to the end of the spot where you're supposed to check, and then they were like, "Okay, do you have anything to declare? You have any, food or anything like that?" "No." "Okay, go on through." And that was it. I mean, 2 minutes. I was like, "Oh, this is very nice." Much better. Yeah. And so then I was off, um, got out, got over to, I had to make a detour to get to Baltimore, and I can't remember where I detoured to now. But when I got there was a flight that was going to Chicago, and I wanted to get on that flight, but it was leaving, and the person said I had to make some other kind of arrangement or something because I had already done the first leg of my trip and something else. And I was like, no. And so it went. Oh, I was in Orlando, that's where I went. And then I ended up going over the other flight boarding to Baltimore was in half an hour. So I went over to that gate and got all ready and checked in, got on that flight, got over to Baltimore, and then I had a layover until the morning. I think we made it in Baltimore about midnight their time, maybe a little before midnight, 11 something, almost midnight. Uh, and so my next flight was leaving. It was boarding at 5:30, or sorry, it was boarding at 5:50 or something like that. And then leaving a little after 6. Or sorry, boarding at 5:30, leaving at 6. And then back to Chicago. I made it to Chicago, I think, at 7:30 a.m. our time, and then had to get to the car and then get to work. So I did that. So yeah, so it was a bit of an adventure. And I believe next year they're planning on extending the Virgin Gorda time a little more. I don't know that I'll be able to do that. My boss was a little hesitant about me being gone the number of days I was gone, and I went to work half a day on Wednesday, and I made it there a little bit late on Monday. But it is what it is, right? So you guys be praying with me on that. Yeah, the year is kicking off. Looking forward to all things. And I apologize for the length again. But yes, all things are good. All things are well. And looking forward to all that God will be doing. Thank you for your prayers. If you guys have prayer requests, please do send them my way. Looking forward to an awesome year with EITI, with 10, especially 10 Now Jen, with also Todd and TODBI, as well as TEE, Triunity Empowerment Enterprises. So looking forward to all that God is yet doing. 2025, we thrive this year. Already been thriving. The enemy, He's there, he tries, but we continue to excel and succeed. Love you so much. Multiply blessings of love and peace. Shalom, shalom.